ahead of us. So thank you to everybody who has joined us. Good afternoon. My name is Christy Brandt, and I am the college's Director of Planned Giving. And I do, as I said, want to thank you all very much for joining us today for this conversation on estate planning held by and for Dickinson women. Before we begin, I'm going to quickly go over a few housekeeping items for all of you who've joined us. This is a webinar format, so that means that you can see the panelists, but unfortunately we can't see you. We set the technology up this way so that we can share screens, but I am so sorry that we can't see your faces. I do want to encourage you to participate via the chat and the Q&A functions at the bottom of your screen. So to get us started, I'm hoping all of our participants who feel comfortable doing so would please type your name, your class year, if it's applicable, and your general location in the chat feature. I know that we have about 20 participants registered, and I think I saw at least 15 of you who had logged in from all over the country. So I would love for you to be able to see who's joining us. Because we're going to discuss some topics that touch upon legal and financial matters, I do have a few disclaimers to make. As we mentioned in one of your emails, this conversation is being recorded, and while we certainly know and trust all of you, we cannot make any claim of confidentiality related to any information that you might choose to share. The program will offer general information in a group setting. It is not a substitute for legal or other professional advice in a private or a formal attorney-client relationship or another professional relationship. It also isn't a substitute for addressing your particular needs or any specific legal concern that you might have. A number of questions have been submitted in advance, and I also encourage you throughout the conversation to submit questions in the chat or the Q&A feature. Our program will begin with a discussion from our panelists, and we expect to have about 20 or 30 minutes for questions after that. As I said in one of the emails that you received, I really believe that this is an important topic, and I've seen an increased number of women at Dickinson who have been interested in estate planning. I am so grateful to my colleagues and our panelists for sharing their expertise with us, and I want to let you know who's here with us today. First, we have Sam Kramer, my amazing assistant, who is driving this Zoom for us. We also have my colleague Jennifer Giglio, who is Dickinson's Director of Major Gifts, and Julia Atanasio, Dickinson's Senior Advancement Officer for Pennsylvania and the Philadelphia region. We also have our distinguished, very distinguished panelists, Linda Steckley, Melissa Novak, and Cynthia Mcnichols. We'll introduce each of these three truly remarkable women before their segments, but I have to tell you all the same thing that I told them whenever they agreed to do this. I really do think these women represent the dream team. They were all my very first choice panelists when we thought about having this conversation, because they have such a wealth of experience and a commitment to sharing that knowledge. Not to mention, they also have a very sincere love of Dickinson. I know that I'm going to learn a lot from them today, and I hope that you do too. So having said that, I would like to get us started by introducing Cynthia. Cynthia Mcnichols, Esquire, has been admitted to practice in Pennsylvania since 1982. She is a sole practitioner focusing on estate planning and estate administration, and she acts as a court-appointed guardian and trustee. She's also a judicial law clerk and a master for the Orphans Court of Delaware County, Pennsylvania. She's currently the co-chair of the Orphans Court Committee of the Delaware County Bar Association, and she's held a leadership role on that committee since 2007. She's active with the Real Property, Probate, and Trust Law section of the Pennsylvania Bar Association, sharing information among Pennsylvania's estate practitioners and remaining knowledgeable about developments in the law relating to estates, trusts, and elder law. She's a past president of the Delaware County Estate Planning Council, and she served as the editor of the Delaware County Elder Law Handbook from 2006 to 2017. She received her BA from Dickinson College in 1974 and her JD from Villanova in 1982. She has also served as a member of the Dickinson College Alumni Council. Cynthia, thank you so much for joining us today. I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Christy, for that lovely intro. And thanks to Jennifer, Julia, Sam, and Melissa and Linda. I've really enjoyed working with all of you in preparing for this program today. And the threshold question that Christy gave us, I think, was how to approach the issue of estate planning, how to get started. I think obviously joining a conversation like this is an excellent way. You've got people focused on various aspects of estate planning here all in one place for you today. I suspect, though, that many of you out there have completed your estate plans but might be considering some modifications to them, as you should consider throughout your life. But if you haven't really started yet, or think that you haven't, maybe you really have. If you've started by creating a list of your assets, with how they're titled, how they're valued, and which ones have beneficiary designations and which ones do not, then you have gotten a good start on the process. I wanted to say something about the beneficiaries on accounts that have them. For example, life insurance, retirement plans often have them, POD accounts, TOD accounts. They all have beneficiaries that you have named, and you have an agreement with the company that holds that money to pay that money directly to your beneficiaries at your death, on presentation, hopefully, of just a death certificate. That means that your will does not direct the disposition of those assets. And it's important to keep that in mind as you proceed through the process. You want to check on your beneficiaries periodically to make sure that that they are up to date and that you have contingents named. But realize that the planning around those assets has to be coordinated with your estate plan involving your will and your powers of attorney. Because they might not pass through your probate estate, but they are probably subject to estate taxes, inheritance taxes, and income taxes. And therefore, planning with professionals is key to making sure that all of that is coordinated as it should be. Speaking of taxes, which we love to do, correct? I'll start with just a mention of the federal estate tax. This is not applied to estates currently under a value of $11.58 million. That's in 2020. It's due to go up in 2021 because it's adjusted annually for inflation. And in 2026, it is scheduled to go back to 5 million. Adjusted for inflation, they anticipate that would be 6.5 million. As you may know, you can protect, a married couple can protect 2 times the exclusion amount, whatever it is at the time of their death, by using trusts in their will, in their estate plan. But the trade-off is the surviving spouse does not have complete control over those assets. In the political climate where we are now, a couple of days, I guess, from the election, there's some uncertainty there. You want to keep an eye on that number. That number might go down before 2026. It might go down to 5 million. It might go 3.5 million. And that can affect a lot more people. A lot more people can be exposed to the federal estate tax, which is a very onerous tax, I must say, than have been previously. And remember that includes the value of your estate for federal estate tax purposes, includes life insurance. So when you think about that, the proceeds of life insurance, you're not maybe viewing as an asset. It is viewed as an asset in your gross estate for federal estate tax purposes. Many states have inheritance or estate taxes, which are not as onerous as the federal estate tax. For example, I only practice in Pennsylvania, so I'm giving you Pennsylvania as an example. Our inheritance tax is a tax on the transfer of assets at death, whether by will or by beneficiary designation, or in the absence of a will or beneficiary designation by the Intestate Act. Intestate means without a will. The tax is applied to the net value of the estate, not including life insurance. Pennsylvania does not tax life insurance proceeds by way of inheritance tax, even if it's paid to your estate. The rates in Pennsylvania, the spousal rate is 0%. Notice I didn't say a spouse is not taxed. Technically, you file a return, but the rate applied is 0%. Spouses used to be taxed. That's why it's set up that way. Lineal rate, your children, grandchildren, et cetera, 4.5%. Siblings, 12%. Everyone else, except charities, of course, which are also not taxed, but everyone else, including nieces and nephews and friends, a non-spouse partner in life, 15%. And I've convinced people to get married just to save that tax. How to reduce federal estate tax, Pennsylvania inheritance tax, any other income tax, of course, is a couple of ways. One is to give money away irrevocably during your lifetime. Now, this has to be done very, very thoughtfully. Irrevocable sometimes really does mean irrevocable. The challenges are at the higher end is that the gifts reduce your available credit under the federal estate tax. At the lower end, it can affect your eligibility for Medicaid. At any point, wherever you are in life, you may want to hold on to your money until you are, at least you think, closer to the end. Another good way to reduce taxes is, of course, charitable gifts, and we're going to be talking quite a bit about that today. Lifetime gifts, of course, probably most people here today have made lifetime gifts to Dickinson, if not to other charities as well, probably so. Testamentary gifts, again, that's by will. There can be outright gifts of a certain amount or a percentage of your residuary estate. That's common. You can use trusts for this, for charitable purposes, and Linda, I think, will speak about that. Annuities, of course, and Christy is here to speak about that as well. It's important to work with professionals, and we do work together often, attorneys, accountants, financial advisors, wealth managers, gift officers at the charities and educational institutions that you wish to benefit. What documents do we use? Quickly, most of you are familiar with this, I think. A will, last will and testament, that distributes your property, names your fiduciaries, and determines the source of tax payments. We had a question about out-of-state executor, whether to name one or not. If that's the person that you trust to handle your estate, then that's a good choice. If you don't provide in your will that they can serve without bond, they will have to secure a bond and pay for that out of your estate. Jennifer and I were speaking just before the program about the difficulties that can arise when somebody from out of state is attempting to administer your estate where you live, and they might live far away. They don't know the local people, the local banks, and so forth and so on. And she noted that you typically retain a good estate administration attorney to help and really guide the process and do a lot of the work while you're still the signatory. Trusts are used for tax planning, to preserve principal for later generations, to protect squandering of assets by problematic heirs. They are used for minors. And this day and age, special needs trust. I wanted to make mention of that. If you have a beneficiary with so-called special needs that is receiving or might be qualified in the future for needs-based government benefits, you can give them a bequest in a special needs trust, and that keeps their government benefits while providing for their supplemental needs that the government doesn't provide, such as a vehicle or computer equipment, even a vacation. They're well established in the law now, and definitely to be seriously considered if you have a beneficiary like that. Powers of attorney are used in estate planning. They are lifetime documents. They end at your death. You can avoid a guardianship by use of medical and durable powers of attorney for legal and financial reasons, but we need to thoughtfully consider the appointments of the agents that you would like to appoint and the powers that you're going to grant them. Some are very sensitive. They can interfere with the estate plan that you've set up. So we go about that very, very carefully. These documents are created in the state of your residence or domicile because the law of your domicile applies to them. We had a question earlier. If you move, your documents that you prepared here might be valid in your new state, but they might not work as effectively for you. So it's advisable if you move to another state to contact an estate planning attorney there and review the process again and see if you need better documents for your new state. Also, you should review your documents every 5 years at least, or with major life changes, with tax law changes, with the aging of fiduciaries. People you name to help you are getting older, just like you are, and it may be time to reconsider whether they can do the job or want to. And you check your beneficiary designations as much as you can, as often as you can. Keep the originals in a fireproof box. How to find an estate planning attorney if you don't, if you're not lucky enough to know one. Check with your other professionals, your wealth advisor, financial advisor, accountant, other attorneys locally, estate planning councils. There's an estate planning council of Central Pennsylvania, I found out this morning. And these are groups of other professionals, not just attorneys, who are serious about estate planning. And they tend to keep up with the developments in the law and best practices. And they tend to know, yes, Melissa knows many competent estate planning attorneys in the area. So they're the people who would know. The fees can be several hundred to $1,000 or more, maybe more than a few thousand if your situation is very complex. Talk to one or two estate planning attorneys on the phone in your state. And I would suggest to you that the question is not, with regard to fees, what do you charge for a simple will? These are not forms that we insert your name into. These are handcrafted documents. These involve a great deal of discussion over potentially 3-4 meetings, maybe fewer, but sometimes more. The will and powers of attorney involve discussion about your assets, your family, your loved ones, your potential fiduciaries. If you're asking about fees, it's fair and it should be part of the discussion, but I would suggest that you ask for a range based on what you have told the person, the attorney. They should be able to give you a range, and then see who you're comfortable with. There's so much value in the discussion. That is one of the main reasons why we do it. And then when you'll feel a great sense of accomplishment when all the documents are signed, and your agents can hit the ground running if you become incapacitated with your powers of attorney, and your will provides guidance and direction for your loved ones as to your wishes. And you can then pat yourself on the back for a job well done. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Thanks, Cynthia. Thank you very much. And now I'm going to ask Julia to introduce Melissa for us.
Funny how we always have to unmute ourselves when we want to start talking now. A new thing to get used to. So it's my pleasure to introduce Melissa Novak. She graduated from Dickinson in 1997, and she's a senior vice president and senior personal investment portfolio manager at Northern Trust. She's a founding partner and co-lead of the Philadelphia office, and she manages a full set of investment accounts, generally for large and sensitive personal trust relationships and individual investors. She operates within the framework of the underlying trust document, developing strategies designed to achieve specific investor goals. Melissa functions as a senior staff member and technical expert in the peer review and investment management process, and her assignments involve a high level of client servicing, often as the primary client contact. And I'm also happy to share that Melissa was a former member of the Dickinson College Philadelphia Regional Alumni Council.
Well, thank you all for having me. I'm excited to be here. I am going to share my screen, but while I do that, I just want to give you a little bit about my background. Oh boy, looks like I am not being able to identify which one I can share. Hold on a second. Yeah, that's not going to work. All right, do you see that? What do you don't see the right screen, do you? Stop sharing. All right, little technical difficulties here. And we even tried this out before we did it. All right. All right, forget it. I'm not gonna share. Hold on. Stop sharing. Do you see the presentation, or what do you guys see? You don't see the right one, do you?
I see the presentation.
But you see it with my notes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, okay, forget it. I'm not going to share it. So essentially what's going on is, sorry about that little glitch, but I'm back now. So I had a presentation for you all, but I'll just talk through it. So when you're starting to look for an investment advisor or an advisor in general, there are some things that you should start thinking about. How do you make decisions is one of them. So, I find that many clients have a structured approach to tackling key decisions around their wealth. It's important to start with what you have, which are your assets, and what you want to do, which are your goals. Understand how your assets fund your goals is critical to helping you make sound decisions. It's your investment, ask the question, is your investment plan designed to help you achieve those goals? Most investment plans are built upon an arbitrary assessment of risk. That might mean, you fit into a growth aspect, or you fit into growth with income. Something along those lines. I believe there's a better way to assess risk. How can you compare an entrepreneur with a young family with their entire net worth tied up in a business with an executive that is just getting ready to retire? They both may have growth aspects to their portfolio, but they definitely don't have the same amount of risk. So you can't just assign a single portfolio style to them. The key here is one size doesn't fit all. They have differing needs and should have different portfolios. Have you integrated all of your financial decisions? I deal with clients with multiple assets at multiple levels, and I've seen many people make decisions in silos, and they're missing the opportunity to take a full advantage of their wealth. What do I mean by this is that they're not communicating. Their advisor, such as Cynthia on the trust side, isn't communicating with the accountant, who isn't communicating with the investment advisor. All of those people need to be coordinated. The other thing is you consistently monitoring your plan. Cynthia mentioned this, given the changes in macro environments, as well as in your personal life. Without the constant attention, a plan can quickly go off course. Finally, ask yourself, what is success? Is it just performance, or is there more to that aspect of your portfolio? We find that wealth comes with many competing decisions and priorities. Do you know what your net worth is? Do you feel confident you're positioned to achieve your financial goals? Based on your values, what do your family wealth and estate plan want to support? Does your estate plan support your values? Does it reflect who you are? Does that all happen? A well-coordinated team can help you with this. So, with wealth comes many decisions and competing priorities. Clients don't always have the time to do this. So to have advisors that are working cohesively as a team, that will help you make those decisions. Like I mentioned, differing changes in the macro environment and your personal life require changes in your estate plans and require changes that you might not see. So your advisors on the investment side, your lawyer or your accountant, should be looking out for that blind side where you're not totally seeing the whole full picture, or even if you are, they're thinking about the unforeseen risks that may be occurring within that. And then, I talk about a well-coordinated team. What do I mean here? What does that give you? It gives you confidence to make decisions and the ability to adapt when circumstances change. A few things to think about is look for a multidisciplinary team approach, somebody that's quarterbacking and planning and assuring you stay on track. So by doing that, by having advisors that are paying attention, you then can sit back and say, oh, I'm being taken care of. And that's not just from the investment side. The investment side is incredibly important and where I've spent most of my career, but I deal a lot with my partners in other areas such as wealth planning and trust administration. And, I deal with my clients, lawyers and accountants in the sense of we come up with an idea and we start hashing it out with a client, and then we consult with the estate attorney. What are we missing? Are we missing something essential for this client or not? And then the estate attorney weighs in on the idea or says, oh, this is not even appropriate because of XYZ. So that's what I mean when you say take a multidisciplinary approach. You want to find an advisor that knows you and is looking out for you, and you're not just another number in their ranks. And because your families and your complexities differ very, very much than the next client down the line. Holistic wealth management, not just simply asset management. Asset management is incredibly important. Diversified portfolios are incredibly important. But when you're talking about holistic asset management, you want to make sure the teams are coordinated. And by doing that, the investment advisors, such as myself, portfolio managers, can then go and build a thoughtful portfolio to meet those goals with your assets that you have to be able to achieve your end result and what you want your estate to do for you. A personalized framework. Make sure that you're aligning your financial objectives with your near-term goals and your long-term goals. And those might be very different. And there's multiple ways to handle that. Again, every person's unique. A customized portfolio is important. We don't all just fit into a model at some point. There there are too many nuances with each one of our lives and each one of our situations to fit into models. And finally, choose an advisor that will cover your blind side, that will be there while you live your life, attend to your family, and attend to doing all those things, while the advisor is thinking about the risks that lie out in the distance. So I wish I could show you my beautiful slides, but for some reason I can't figure it out. So no worries. I'm going to pass it back over to the other panelists.
I don't think we needed your slides. I think that was fantastic. So thank you. Thank you very much, Melissa. Now I'm going to ask Jennifer to introduce Linda Steckley.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Melissa. That was really great. And I have such the honor right now to introduce Linda Steckley from the wonderful class of 1963. Linda has built a career in education, government, and philanthropy. Following graduation from Dickinson, Linda spent 4 years teaching English and journalism at the middle school level, followed by a decade of community involvement and work in government. Beginning in 1980, the next 35 years were spent as a fundraising professional, retiring in 2015 after serving the Chautauqua Institution as Senior Major Gifts Officer. This followed 7 years supporting public policy research as Vice President for Development and Executive Education at the Brookings Institution in Washington, D.C. Prior to joining Brookings, Steckley's work focused on higher education with chief fundraising positions at Duke University School of Law, New York University School of Law, and the University of Miami, where Linda earned an MBA. Her professional leadership was demonstrated through involvement with the Council for Advancement and Support of Education, or CASE as we call it, and authoring articles in professional journals and books. Linda currently serves on the Dickinson College Alumni Council and is a founding board member of the Fund for Education Abroad in Washington, D.C. Additional board officer positions at present are with the Roger Tory Peterson Institute of Natural History and the Chautauqua Opera Guild. It is my true pleasure to introduce my friend, Linda Steckley.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
I said all of those things are just an indicator of how many years I've been around. So thank you so much. You know, what a pleasure it is to be with everyone today. I regret that we can't see our other participants because I know that I've got a couple of longtime friends out there. And I'm just delighted that the other Dickinson alumni from over a span of many years are there as well. One of the things that strikes me is the immediate connection that among Dickinson alumni, regardless of the year of graduation. And I'll tell you a little personal story. My husband, who is a disengaged alumnus of the giant University of Illinois, suspects that as part of our orientation at Dickinson, we are all implanted with a little magnetic chip so that we can find other Dickinson alumni all over the world. And I'm sure that you all have stories of running into Dickinson alums and making those connections on your travels around the world. So it really is a pleasure to be here. Also, I don't know that Christy mentioned this, but October is Estate and Gift Planning Awareness Month. Another one of those national months. And so our team at Dickinson is just right on target planning this for today. And I have to say that the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, has given us an opportunity, and I think perhaps many of us have felt obligated to think a little bit more, contemplate our lives and what we want them to count for. So that's my part of this program today, and I'd like to talk to you about philanthropy. All right, we're going to talk about charitable giving during a pandemic or a recession. Now, I have to say that all of this is applicable to good times, but this is a unique time that all of us are living through. And I think that we want to think about our values and our beliefs and think about, what is my life about? There we go, on the slide. What's my life about? The last 8 months have given, or perhaps forced, most of us to spend some time pondering our lives and engaging in conversations about what our lives are about. And then secondly, thinking, what are my values? What are the virtues that I stand for and want to live by? And I think this has been kind of a forced break and a lot of change in our lives and the lives of our loved ones. And we're thinking, all right, I want the years ahead of me to be especially meaningful. I want to take stock and what am I all about as a human being? In thinking about Dickinson and the culture of our shared Dickinson liberal arts education, I think it has resulted in all of us, regardless of when you graduated, to adopt a focus on the common good. And of course, that's become the college's tagline, but I think that it was part of our lives and our value system even before the college articulated that. Whether it's that we think about the good of our family, the common good of our communities, our nation, or our planet, and that's on a lot of our minds. If you're here today, then you're thinking about the future and planning to make it mean something. So, and whether you already have an estate plan in place or you're just beginning to think about that, I think you're doing exactly the right thing. What actions am I taking, and what do I want my life to be all about going forward? And philanthropy is an important part of that, because philanthropy is your legacy. And as women, we have the potential to literally change the world. Go to the next slide, please. All right, what do we know? Number one, women's wealth has raised dramatically over the past 50 years. And today, women hold 40% of global wealth. And if this is even a mind-blowing statistic, but if projections hold, by the middle of this century, women will be in control of 70% of the wealth in the world. What an opportunity this gives us to impact the world of our children and our grandchildren. This is number two, women are more likely to give, to make charitable gifts, and to give more than their male counterparts. And you can see that little bar chart there. I think one of the best and most well-known examples of this is Laureen Powell Jobs, the widow of Steve Jobs. And Steve famously did not care about money. He was a creator. And I was, in thinking about that, I thought we all are the beneficiaries, or perhaps sometimes we feel like the victims of Steve Jobs' creations. But his wife, now one of the wealthiest women in the world, has dedicated her life to philanthropic activities. She's especially concerned about education reform, social redistribution, and environmental conservation. And she's in a position to really provide leadership in those areas. But number three, women give differently. This is the power that each of you with us today has. That if you have not thought of yourself as a philanthropist, think again. And it was pointed out a little earlier that you have the ability and the privilege to make a difference through your estate plan and in each year for the rest of your life. You've probably already started your philanthropic plan, perhaps through support for your school, for Dickinson, for your child's school, your religious organization, maybe a local or a national social service operation, or maybe this year it's a COVID relief fund or an environmental cause. So research tells us that leaving large sums of money or assets to children is often not a positive gift. Many of us have worked hard for many years to acquire what we have. Some of us have been fortunate enough to receive an inheritance, but we know that the thing that makes us feel good is a sense of accomplishment in working hard and building an asset portfolio and building a reputation. Let's give our kids and grandchildren the opportunity to do the same thing. So, and I think that part of that is a sense of philanthropy. On average, an inheritance is gone, an individual inheritance is gone within 12 months. That's mind-boggling. And accumulated wealth, which is transferred from one generation in a family to another, is typically dissipated within 3 generations. So I think that one of the points that I would like to make is communicating your values to your family is critical. And this is such a good time to do it. And these are not things that we typically talk about with our families. I encourage you to perhaps take a class on inheritance and family dynamics and how those things can work. Even if you do not consider yourselves wealthy, this is still an important opportunity and really a part of the gift that you can give to your children and to grandchildren. There are classes on inheritance and help, even facilitators, to help families come together and talk about what are their values. Why do I feel the way I do? Do your grandchildren or your children know what's important to you? And more importantly, do they know why certain causes are important to you? If you stop and think about it, especially those of us who have families that are separated all over the country. We are blessed with a blended family with 5 sons, but one of them's on the West Coast, one of them's in Massachusetts, one's in North Carolina, and a couple are in Florida. So they're just all over, and that makes it difficult to bring families together, but an important thing to try to do. And there are a number of really interesting plans about how to run a family meeting. I think we're about to do a Zoom meeting, but we're typically on our Zooms not so serious as talking about an estate plan, but it's at least a way to get started. So what do your children and grandchildren care about? I remember when our youngest son was heading off to college, and we opened a checking account for him. This was back in the late 80s, early 90s. And he was so excited, and then he immediately wrote a check to Save the Whales. And that was an indicator to us now that he is a very grown man, middle-aged man. He directs a program called Blue Scholars Initiative, which is an environmental education program that he designed for elementary school students to learn about the world of the water that surrounds them. So learning about what your children and your grandchildren care about really helps you in your planning, in your estate planning, because there are things that you're going to want to encourage. Okay, next slide, please. Our government has typically encouraged philanthropy, fortunately, and there are 3 laws in the last few years that have done just that. First of all, the Tax Cut and Jobs Act of 2017, which made it possible to deduct up to 60% of your adjusted gross income for charitable giving. Then the Secure Act, I have in there that it was 2017, but it was actually 2019, which enables people who are retired not to have to take their required minimum distribution until they are age 72. It used to be 70 and a half, so this gives another year and a half for growing that fund. and it continues to grow even after you begin taking an RMD. And then finally, the CARES Act of this year, which did two things. One, for people who do not itemize on their income tax, they can still take up to a $300 charitable deduction if they make charitable gifts. And then for the rest of the people who do itemize, and who are now retired, they do not have to take their required minimum distribution this year at all. You can leave the entire amount and have it continue to grow if you don't need to take it. Now, let's take a look at charitable giving during a pandemic or recession. And I want to say that all of the following tools, and some of them were mentioned by Cynthia and by Melissa, that all of them will work at any time, but some are especially relevant during this period of uncertainty and the period that we're going through. The best way to determine what works best for you, which has been pointed out by both of my colleagues on this panel, is to discuss it with your financial advisors, the people who know what your asset base looks like and the people who understand the goals that you want to accomplish. And professionals in the field of gift planning, like Christy Brandt at Dickinson. We're so lucky to have her. Very knowledgeable about the details of gift planning, and should be considered if Dickinson is among your favorite charities, which I suspect for many of you it is. Christy is really a tremendous asset for us, and part of that team that Melissa talked about. All right, so let's think about first planned gift. A planned gift's part of your estate, but it doesn't have to be. The simplest planned gift is one in your will, your estate plan, that you name a charity and you want money from your estate to go directly to that charity. This is part of your estate, and if there is a probate process, it will go through probate. Another way, and one where you can avoid probate, is taking an IRA. Most of us have an IRA, and take one of your IRAs and make your charity the beneficiary of an IRA, or the same thing can work for a paid up life insurance policy. They both were mentioned earlier. But the beauty of naming a charity as a beneficiary of an IRA or a life insurance policy is that is paid off the top. It does not go through probate, so it really is a big advantage to the charity. Personally, what I have done is taken an IRA and made that my charity IRA. And I have 3 organizations that have really made a big difference in my life. Currently, I support them on an annual basis to the extent that I'm able, but I have an IRA, which is my charity IRA, and I have made Dickinson and 2 other organizations the beneficiaries of that IRA, so that at the time of my death, the funds that are in that, and hopefully it's going to keep growing for however many years I have left, and then those funds will be equally divided among the 3 institutions. If you consider doing something like this, it's important to notify the organization, notify Dickinson, or notify your church or synagogue that you have done this, because they need to plan also. And if you keep them posted on once a year is enough, just let them know what the current value of that is, and it gives them a sense of what their future planning might look like. Let's go on to the next slide, which is blended gifts. And this is a very logical, simple gift also. Think about the organizations that you support on an annual basis. And they depend upon your gifts, your support. So they're going to want to, you are going to want to perhaps continue supporting them after you're gone. So you want to continue making affordable gifts on an annual basis as you're doing, but set up something that will go into their endowment when you are gone that is more significant. Now, admittedly, you want to keep that money perhaps in your retirement funds now in case you need it for health issues or something, some other emergency. But at the time of your death, if a significant gift is allocated to the charity, it's going to really be your legacy because these are the organizations you've cared about during your life. Here's an example. What if you wanted to establish a named scholarship at Dickinson? You could afford perhaps $5,000 a year on that scholarship, but you can immediately name that scholarship in honor of you or your family or someone else that you might want to honor, and specify a commitment in your estate plan of $50,000. And when that commitment is made and you continue giving on an annual basis, you have the opportunity to get to know the students who are able to go to school because of your generosity. And the other important thing on that is that larger gifts to endowment that can fund specific programs, centers, or something innovative that the college wants to do, or to support faculty, they all tend to build the endowment, which is really the college's indication of financial stability. All right, and then briefly, what we call annuities and trusts. Annuities and trusts, which may seem complicated, and of course Cynthia knows a lot about those and Melissa knows a lot about those, but they are tools. Think of them as tools to enable you to accomplish your goals. They can be used to establish gifts, so the kinds of gifts that we've already mentioned, but just briefly, a charitable gift annuity provides a guaranteed income for you for life, for you and a spouse, you and a partner. So one or two donors can receive income for life based on an initial gift that you would give to the charity. When interest rates are low, as they are now, you're not making money on any savings account, that's for sure. And you can often do much better through income payments from an annuity. So consider that. And also, it's a very good use of appreciated stock. If you sold that stock, you're going to be stuck with a tax commitment. But if you transfer that stock, don't sell it, transfer it directly to the charity, then they do not have to pay the capital gains tax on that stock, and they can use that to fund a charitable gift annuity that will provide income for you. So a very good way to make a gift, especially in times of uncertainty. A charitable lead trust. That simply means that the income from a significant gift is set up for a period of time that the charity receives that income on that investment. And it's invested typically with the charity's endowment funds. But then after that period of time, the remainder goes back to your estate. So you've preserved the principal and still helped the organization you care about. And then finally, a charitable remainder trust, which is just the opposite, where the donor receives the income stream for a period of years. So similar to an annuity, and then the remainder goes to the charity. So one more. Donor advised funds. These have been very trendy in the last few years. Some wealthy families have set up their own donor advised funds so that they, as a family, as I was mentioning earlier, can come together and make charitable decisions as a family. It's a way of helping your children and grandchildren become philanthropists when you are also. Many people want to support their local community foundation, and they typically have a donor advised fund. Some investment firms, many investment firms have set them up. Some colleges now are setting up in-house donor advised funds. But it's important to realize that the donor gets, you as the donor would get the tax benefit when you commit the money to the fund. And the other thing to remember is that they are used to make a direct cash gift, but not to fulfill pledges. So there are a few complications with a donor advised fund. All right, let's come full circle and talk about the difference between men and women and why I believe that women have an incredible empowerment to literally change, as a gender, change the world in lots of ways, but as philanthropists. So, as in so many areas of life, women have a unique approach to giving as compared to men. Not all women are the same, of course, but so these are generalizations. And I also believe that as more women are becoming recognized business leaders and community leaders, they will see that a portion of their philanthropy really does have business benefits, which men have seen for a long time. I listed it here as self-interest, and there's nothing wrong with self-interest, and men also prefer to give to community organizations like the United Way. They feel like they're covering a number of organizations at one time, and they care about the tax benefits to them or to their company. Women, on the other hand, see a need and they respond to it. They demonstrate empathy. They care about something. They respond spontaneously. And they also often will respond by volunteering, by serving on a board, or generally getting involved. So that giving for women is a multifaceted endeavor, and there is a sense of engagement, and the empathy, I think, is so important. So the final slide is, I know that each of you out there that I regret again that I can't see, I know that you have enormously big hearts. You've worked hard to build your body of assets, and you want to make sure that your life has meaning when you have passed on. So dream big and think about the things that you love in life, what's important to you, and keep that big heart beating and make a difference in the world. And thank you all so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Linda. That was really wonderful. And what a great note for us to not end on, because we do have a couple of questions that we very quickly want to ask. I do want to thank all of our panelists. I did share some of our questions with them in advance, and I know that they incorporated those into their talks already. So thank you very much for doing that. One question that was submitted a little bit earlier that we did not ask or answer yet is what needs to be done to make a gift of stock? I'm wondering, Melissa, if you can address that for us from a wealth management perspective, and then certainly Cynthia and Linda, if you have anything to add from from your own perspectives, please do so. I will note to everyone we are at 4:29, so we are going to go a little bit over time here, only because we have such wonderful information. So you are all welcome to stay with us. This won't go on forever, but we do want to make sure we address questions as we can. So, Melissa, gifts of stock, what do you think?
So first of all, the major thing is you need to identify if the charity can take stock. I know Dickinson can, so you aren't limited there in that respect. And really all that needs to be done is identifying, and the best way to give stock is identifying the holding that you have that has the lowest basis. So therefore you end up not having to pay the taxes on that gain within that asset. So for example, say you bought Apple 5 years ago or 10 years ago, Apple would be a great stock to gift to any institution, because you will give up that gain and not have to pay the income or to pay the capital gains tax of 23.8% today for federal on that. So all you need to do is speak with your advisor, your investment advisor, or the institution itself, and they will provide you with the DTC instructions, which is direct transfer, I think it's, well, it's D, David, Tom, Charlie instructions. And they will, then all you need to do is give it to your financial institution, tell them how many shares you want to send over. They will send it over, and that financial institution or the charity receiving it will supply you with a gift notification. And that's that. Very seamless and easy.
I will add one caveat to that. If you happen to be someone who has stock certificates stuck in a safe deposit box or a fireproof safe somewhere that you inherited from your grandfather, those certificates sometimes require a few extra steps. So
Yeah, they
those
probably need to be registered.
They do. Usually medallion signatures need to be involved, and that does not happen quickly. We don't have too many of those kinds of gifts, but if that is something you're thinking of doing, please know that is not the kind of stock gift that can be turned over within a day or two. That's going to take a little bit longer to take care of. Most stock gifts happen exactly the way Melissa explained it.
Christy, you're on mute.
Thank you. Let me ask one more question of you, Melissa, and certainly Cynthia and Linda. I welcome your thoughts as well. Is there a minimum amount of money that you should have before working with a wealth advisor, before considering an estate plan, before thinking about a charitable gift?
I don't think so. There are wealth advisors and wealth planners and people that sit in my role that deal with all sorts of wealth. And that could be somebody just starting out and very new to the to wealth in general, that is just starting their savings account and want to invest that savings as opposed to watch it earn zero in a bank account. And there are providers out there that will do that for you and will help you with that. I know when I graduated from Dickinson, I worked with an advisor, and I set up my Roth IRAs, and I did all of that right the first year I graduated. And trust me, I didn't make a lot of money back then and wasn't worth a lot of money. So you can do it. And I think that makes sense. When it comes to the estate planning, Cynthia, I'll pass that off to you.
Mhm.
I don't know the ins and outs as much.
Well, when someone says to me, I don't need a will, I barely have anything, and I say, oh dear Lord, this is you need a will maybe more than anybody. So don't think that you don't need a will if you don't have major assets. Sometimes, well, I'll leave it at that. Just take my word for it. And as far as making a charitable gift, I think my first post-graduation gift to Dickinson was $5. So take it from me, give what you can.
One way to get some good advice, if you work for a company that you have a retirement fund, the company that holds that, in my case, because I worked for universities, it was TIAA, or whether it's Vanguard or Fidelity, whatever, but they often will offer advice, and that if you do it like once a year, you don't have to pay anything for it. But even if you did have to pay something for a longer advisory meeting with a person, it's not going to be very much. So if you have retirement funds, it's a good way to get at least some good information and good conversation about your estate plan.
I think that's fantastic. And I want to thank all of you, Linda, Cynthia, and Melissa, for sharing your time and your expertise with us today. If there are questions from all of our participants that we weren't able to get to, please send it to me via email, and we will make sure that we get answers for you as best we can. Before we go, I do want to remind all of you, this is my little commercial. Dickinson has a revolutionary challenge that you may have heard of. It's our year-long effort to identify 4 big ideas that could really help shape the college and our students and the much wider community in which we live. We're going to showcase those 4 big ideas and give alumni and community members a chance to vote on the ones that resonate with you. That's all going to happen on Thursday, October 29th. You should have received some email. You'll probably receive more asking you if you would like to view and participate in that event. It really should be wonderful, and I hope that you all will join us. And with that, I want to once again thank our panelists, Linda, Melissa, and Cynthia. You are the best, and I am so grateful for your expertise. I was taking notes. I learned a lot, so thank you for that. And thank you to everyone who's joined us today. The Dickinson community is stronger than ever because of women like you. I genuinely mean that. Women who come together and learn from and support one another. And it is a pleasure to work with all of you. And I hope that you all enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.